You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I am your host, Amy, and with me today are Mark and Kelvin.
I'm back and I'm alive! No, I was so sedated last week, guys, and my throat hurts so bad. Allergies and whatever the heck, I don't know, but I am here. I am alive. Kelvin's here. Oh my God, he's looking hot. Woo! Sleeveless shirt. We're ready to go.
Mark, have you been on the stimulants? There's no stopping you today. I love it. It's like you're giving double effort this week.
Oh my God. Well, Dr. Mbanga has been stimulating me.
Oh, of course he has, and we all know how. I'm really, really good today. Do you know what? I know it sounds a bit dramatic to say, but the weather really affects my mental health, and we've had rubbish weather the last week, but the sun has come out to play in the last 48 hours. And I mean, I don't have allergies, but I feel rejuvenated and really just blissfully happy. We've been doing the garden today. So lovely.
So lovely. Oh my goodness.
What about your weekend, Amy?
Oh my goodness. Well, I spent last week with my father, who is in Texas, and they have had terrible weather, rain nonstop. I felt like I was visiting you, Kelvin. But it was wonderful to visit with my dad. I hadn't seen him in actually 2 years, so it was long overdue. Spent a week with him. Did get to visit with a high school friend that has moved there, and a wonderful Trek friend, Adam Harker, is in the Dallas area. So went and visited the Gayborhood in Dallas, a wonderful drag show and country honky tonk drag. I loved it.
It looked a lot of fun on social media, and I just kind of did an eye roll. Amy does Dallas, and she did.
Oh my God.
She did well,
it's definitely got me ready for Pride Month, so I'm just very happy that we get to celebrate Pride. I am a very, being an ally has enriched my life so much, and I'm just very grateful that we have this diversity here, and I'm excited for Pride Month.
Oh, happy Pride Month, everyone.
Happy Pride.
Well, Christos and Kristin are returning the ISS AGT to BQN headquarters.
I see what you did
there. We'll see them in the finale then, I'm sure.
This is the bridge. All hands to emergency escape pods.
Escape pod!
You guys, this is the last time we're going to be using our escape pod for the unforeseeable future. There is no release date of anything coming up. Just, maybe in the fall. What is that? It's not a date. So we are going to discuss Discovery's final episode, finality, life itself.
Wow.
Kelvin, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I'm just to compartmentalize what I'm thinking. I like to think of this as 2 episodes. There's the conclusion to season 5 and the story with the progenitors. And then you've got the little epilogue add-on bits they went back, fortunately, to shoot to wrap up. So I'm going to start with the progenitors story. I enjoyed it. I did think it was a lovely wrapping up of the story. However, I need some help in that I'm usually quite good at understanding everything that's going on in Star Trek. And if I don't, then I'll probably just go back and rewatch, and maybe I was playing on my phone or something. I haven't gone back and done a rewatch yet because it is quite a long episode. I didn't make the time to do so, but I'm not going to lie, I don't really think I understand what the progenitors' technology did or does. So it couldn't bring Locke back to life, or it could, but it wouldn't be him. Or they create life, but it's individual, it's new. And I'm like, is that not just cloning? What I mean, why is it so powerful? What does it do? Can you help me out?
Yeah, I am with you. I mean, and we learned that the progenitors, it's not even their technology. They're
That's
just the
right.
stewards of it. So something created this that they found, and they decided to feed all the worlds that were already there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how.
I got the whole Burnham deciding it was too dangerous.
Yes.
Let's get rid of it. It was very Captain Janeway with the Omega molecule technology. The final frontier has some limits, and we're looking at one. It was all that, but we know what Omega did. We know that it was very destructive power source, and in the wrong hands, very unstable. What did the progenitors technically? Was it a bit like Genesis? Could it just be used for terraforming to eliminate a planet and then bring it back in? I don't know. And then you've got the other question of, well, if it wasn't their technology, whose was it? Are we going down the route here of not wanting to maybe upset people with religious values, so you could kind of reinstate the concept of a creator, a god? Or are we going a completely sci-fi Star Trek way and say maybe this was the Iconians because they had the gateway technology?
Right.
We know the Iconians are from thousands and thousands of years ago. So is it a little callback? I don't know. It brought up a lot of questions, but in a good way, because it's got me thinking. We like Star Trek when it gets us thinking. But yeah, I didn't understand the technology. Sorry.
What is your understanding of the progenitors' technology? Like, how were they able to seed and create different life? Like, what is it?
All right. So the portals obviously is how they seeded everything. They just, I don't know, threw the stuff into the portals and it dropped onto the planet and then blah, blah, blah. So my guess is like
stuff is in DNA, or
your guess is as good as mine.
I've got visions of a farmer and literally throwing seed.
Or
I've been gardening all day.
Or masturbating into the portal.
Oh,
one or the other. But okay, wherever you want to take it. All right. So there's that. Now, as far as what I didn't understand, and Kelvin, you brought up a good point, is like, okay, so we have the Genesis device. The Genesis device could terraform the planet, but it also brought back Spock. So is that technology more advanced than the progenitors? Because that just didn't seem right. I felt like the progenitors technology should have been able to bring back Locke. It just should have been able to. Yeah. If the thing that the UFP created can bring back Spock, then this surely can as well. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a little conflicting because it's from Discovery, it's saying, well, we can bring the body back, but there's no way to restore memories.
And we already brought back Culber, and he has his memories.
Yeah.
So we brought back people in the past, when so it's just a little far. But we can't hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's convenient. I mean, just think about us talking about Rascals. Like, they went to Kid, but they have all of their experiences and memories and personality. Like, that's a transporter. And you're telling me this progenitor device can't do that when a transporter was able to?
Yeah.
It's in the story. You just gotta,
Yeah. I don't want to be underwhelmed by it because it is supposed to be this all-powerful, dangerous, creation-like device. And for us to say it's usurped by Iconians, the Genesis device, simple terraforming, or even a mushroom, it's not good, is it?
Yeah. No. What?
But I agree with you, Kelvin. I did like the wrap up of it. I love that, you get to what is like your reason. What do you want to? And she's like, we've got the diversity. We're good. Let's just put faith in humanity and hope that we can come together to be united. Whatever that saying was, the many into one or whatever. Mark, how did you feel about the second part, the epilogue? Is that what we could call it?
Yeah.
It was everything that Discovery haters hate about Discovery lopped into 30 minutes. It was a whole lot of like Michael Burnham, a whole lot of crying, a whole lot of hugs. Just, I don't know, like a convoluted story that goes nowhere, does nothing. I don't know. Like it just, I liked actually the finale of the season. I thought was really strong. If that's where they were going to end it with the Progenitors, even though I have my sticking points clearly about the powerfulness of that technology, I thought it was done really well. I was excited, especially at the beginning of that episode. I was like, wow, this feels like traditional Star Trek. This feels like Star Trek. This is really good. I was stoked. And through that whole thing, even the bit about Kovich being Daniels, I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool tie-in, like bow on the whole thing. I was like, I really like this. But then they got into the, okay, well, we got to end Discovery, so let's just make one final thing about Michael and have a lot of hugging and crying. And I'm like, okay, this is a big love fest. And they had Oo back, and they even brought back Bryce and Reese. There we go. I had to struggle for their names after 5 seasons or whatever.
Well, Reese hadn't been anywhere, had he? He was the one that kind of got most of the action. Of those guys this year.
But they didn't have any dialogue. It was just all hugs. Like, we'll pay you to come back and film a scene of just hugging.
Yeah.
Nah.
So I think I read this on social media. It sounds quite obvious when you say it, but I didn't think about it in these terms. Those secondary characters clearly were not main cast members on the show. So they don't have the same contracts, probably obviously the same pay. And if they get other work, they get other work. Then they don't have to be there all the time. So it was confirmed that Oo and Detmer, the actresses, had other assignments. And then because of the timing of the reshoots, obviously it was about a year later, if not 18 months, they could come back for that. And I'm all right with it. We have to stop trying to make Discovery something it wasn't, especially now it's done. Let's enjoy those peculiarities of what made Discovery. The main cast were the ones on the credits. This would be like me saying, why is Nurse Ogawa not in every episode of TNG? Well, because she isn't, and that's fine. So it's great that those characters became favorites of ours, but they were never supposed to be there all the time. So I made peace with that aspect.
But they got somebody to sit in OO's seat that looked just like Oo. It's like, oh, let's put another random black person. Now, also, they did the same thing with Bryce. Like, let's just throw another, person of color in there. Like, it's like Indiana Jones taking off the
the gold,
the gold
thing,
and putting on.
I can see the meme.
It's a little. I don't know. Like they should have put an alien or something. Like because in that regard, it looks like they're just swapping out. Okay, we're losing one person.
You could say how many blonde helmsmen did the Enterprise D have after Wesley Crusher left in season 4 and season 5 before we got Ensign Gates, who was like the constant throughout season 7. I don't think they've just gone, let's get another black person who looks like the person we're replacing. I think that's just continuing the diversity of the casting of Discovery, that they want lots of people of color and representation on screen rather than it being about the actress.
Now that it's finished and looking back, hindsight's 2020, I wonder if we got such a impression that this is our main cast, including the secondary, as you were talking about, Kelvin, because when Discovery was announced, especially at Star Trek Las Vegas, the entire cast showed up and they're like, here we are, I'm the pilot. And so they're saying what they are. And just think about that, like with TNG, say like the beginning of season 4, and we've got Beverly Crusher and Nurse Ogawa and Lieutenant J, you know, and they're introduced, and here we are, and then we only see them a handful of times, you know, like we might feel duped, like where are they? I feel like that sort of happened with Discovery when really the main was Burnham, Saru.
Yeah. It's almost like we as fans we're in such disbelief about this very different concept of a show that it was the Michael Burnham show, and it was supposed to be. And so many different shows center around one pivotal main character, and everybody else just helps move the story along. Now, Star Trek has never done that.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with doing that. And they made it explicitly clear, but we were just denying it constantly for 5 seasons, saying, we want more of the helmsman's backstory. Well, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, very true.
Going back to the epilogue, though, I do like this. I like the simplicity of the ending. We go on about these cataclysmic, universe-changing scenarios in Discovery. I just like that everybody had a very quite simplistic, happy ending. I like that Burnham just got married to Buck and had a kid, and he was in Starfleet. I like that just Saru had a lovely wedding, and Tilly became the longest-serving instructor at the academy. Lovely, great, nice.
Yeah.
Nobody died.
Yep. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
They brought Chip back using DNA, and then they killed him again.
I wasn't able to watch because I was with my father. I had no spare time. So I watched it on the plane ride coming home at like midnight. It was ridiculous. And everyone was, no spoilers. Well, I did hear about Daniels and Kovich, but I really liked that connection. But everyone was like, it's a tearjerker, it's a tearjerker. And so I'm on the plane and I'm getting, now to the epilogue, and they're like having their goodbyes, and we see Burnham's son. And I'm like, okay, when am I going to start crying? Didn't have any tears. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I like numb? What is wrong with me? Until the very last Let's Fly. And I saw Burnham's eyes, and I was like, this is the last time I'm going to see Sonequa Martin Green like live. And that's when it hit me, when it was like the finality of that Let's Fly. I'm getting teared up just thinking about it because I love the actors so much. And that's when I was like sniffling, and I'm like, okay, I hope people on the plane are wondering what's going on, but it did get me to tear up at that last moment. So I feel it was a good conclusion, a good bookend. There was a lot going on. I felt like this whole season was written knowing that it was going to be the last, because there was so much connection to the previous seasons that we had never seen. So I really think that this was Discovery's best season overall.
Yeah, agreed.
I gotta agree with Amy. I think so too. Especially, I think I talked to you like the beginning, maybe not the first episode, which is odd because every other first episode of Discovery has been amazing. But like what I was really into, like the second, third, fourth episodes this season. I was just like, wow, like this is really good Trek. So yeah, I had that feeling too. Like I really enjoyed this season. I liked they had a really good balance of being episodic and having this other story going on. And it did feel less, I guess, world altering. I mean, the stakes were still big, but it wasn't the same of saving all consciousness throughout the universe or something.
Yeah. All righty. Well, let's get to today's topic. We are taking it from the top, part 9, and we are going to be discussing Strange New Worlds premiere, titled Strange New Worlds.
Woohoo!
Now, this premiered May 5th, 2022. You guys, that's just 2 years ago. I love that we're talking about a brand new series so recent. This marks, I feel, the second golden age of Trek, where this year we had 4 different series, and I'm using air quotes around series, that aired in 2022. So we have Strange New Worlds. Can you name the other 3 that aired in 2022?
You go first, Mark. You take one.
No, I could name them all, probably. What?
All right, go until you're wrong.
Well, Discovery also came out that year, where they had
Correct.
New Discovery.
Season 4.
Lower Decks.
No, Lower Decks did not air in 2022.
You're kidding me.
All right, so Mark got one. Kelvin?
Well, I probably would have guessed the same, actually, but considering you dropped the ball there, Mark, I'm going to go in with Picard.
Yes, season 2.
And then I'm guessing Prodigy.
Yes, the first 10 episodes of season 1. All right, now, I feel that Strange New Worlds premiere is truly a spinoff. And I was thinking about it. We have never had this before in Star Trek with recurring characters. I thought, man, Deep Space Nine came pretty close, but that was only a storyline. Every single person in Deep Space Nine was a brand new character. No.
Chief O'Brien.
Okay.
And then eventually Worf.
Yeah, but I figured Worf was much later. So the beginning, and we saw O'Brien at the beginning. Okay, well then I'm wrong. So this is the second spinoff with returning characters. Okay. Very good.
It's I see where you're going, and I will grant it is more of a spin-off, especially if you consider the fan kind of, not protests, but you know, the campaign when we wanted Strange New Worlds because we enjoyed Pike and Spock in season 2 of Discovery so much. And this was the huge victory for the fans that we made this show happen. And there was the whole trailers with Anson Mount and Rebecca Romaine and everyone saying, you know, you asked, you got it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's a shame we've not been successful yet with Legacy, but that's what they've been trying to replicate, is the success of the fans screaming for more Pike, Spock, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very celebratory when this show was not only greenlit, but certainly when we saw it. Oh, the beauty!
And we gotta think that this is, you know, DNA wise, the the longest pickup of a show in television history, because this is coming off of the DNA of the Cage. So after they made the Cage, they didn't greenlight Star Trek immediately, and they sort of went through and replaced all the cast. But this show is building on the back of the Cage directly.
Yeah, and you can argue, you know, you say, Amy, that this is a spin-off. What is it spinning off from? Is it a spin-off from the Cage, or is it a spin-off from Discovery?
Discovery is what I would say.
Sure. But
I don't know.
Mark's point of the Cage, this show takes place, what is it, like a couple of years after the events of the Cage. And you could even almost call it a prequel series to the original series. So there's a lot of ways of identifying where Strange New Worlds fits.
The setup, I brought this up. I brought this up to you guys before we started recording, but the setup for this, the premise, has so much similar DNA to the Cage, as far as Pike's, you know, animosity, sort of about going back into space, him really not wanting to do it, and him getting sort of pulled into it, and then you meet Spock, and he's a little bit younger, a little bit more emotional than we'd see him later on. It has that
little more naked.
Yeah, a little more naked. There's the connective tissue with T'Pring in there that you'll see later, in the original series. So there's a whole lot of threads there to connect it to not only the Cage but the original series. I don't know. I think has more DNA in common with the original series and the Cage than it does Discovery. The characters appeared on Discovery, and visually it looks similar, but that's all I'll give it.
Okay, well, let's jump to, because when we talk about taking it from the top, we talk about the hook and the promise. Like, what is the first episode going to, set up for the entire series? I have to disagree with you, Mark, on that, because I feel like the hook for this episode and this series was directly related to Pike and him seeing his death from season 2 of Discovery. Like, that kept showing up more and more frequently than anything with the Cage or any other character. I felt like that was the hook. It's like, how is Pike going to overcome this major life-changing event and, go through and deal with that? I felt like that was the hook of this episode that tied it closer to Discovery for me.
Yeah. So obviously fans of the chronology will know the menagerie from the original series with Pike in the wheelchair. So Mark, I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you could probably argue straight back to Amy and say, well, actually, no, this is more dealing with the events of the menagerie because it's about Pike becoming that character in the wheelchair. So it is all angles, but you are right, Amy. There's so much talk of the Boris episode of Discovery and the bloody time crystals and all that. But I don't know how to steal thunder from later. I like that it is capsuled and just dealt with and acknowledged to kind of get the series started. And it's not all about what happened in season 2 of Discovery. We just accept that as a little bit of a starting point to explain Pike's state of mind.
Yeah. And I felt like the promise that we're getting for this episode was that, we're in the Federation, but especially with dealing with this quote unquote first contact, second contact with the planet, and how are we going to resolve that? And the Prime Directive and General Order Number 1, like, I feel like the promise of this series is that the ship and its crew are going to act and behave ethically, morally, based on the circumstance and not following a general order, not, just a generic rule. And I feel like that's the promise that we're getting because of how they dealt with the planet.
Yeah. Where'd you get that from? Is that more is it more from the marketing of the series, or is it just from reflecting on what you see in the first episode?
Yeah, this is just what I felt the episode is going, that I'm going to see a common thread in the future. I feel like that's the promise to me. It's that's my thought. I didn't find that anywhere.
I think I'm a little more literal in that, because obviously before the show started, there was all the advertisements, the panels, the hype. And so to me, the promise is we are going back to episodic storytelling, which is something that we were all really ready for after Picard, after certainly Discovery. We wanted episodic Star Trek back that we could just pick and choose. And so the fulfillment of that promise is something to very much celebrate for me. But I found that such a point of difference of Strange New Worlds compared to the rest going on at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. The structure, we definitely returned to episodic.
It was definitely a promise of this series for the fans to be more episodic. I think there was still going to be some connective tissue as far as little plot things brought up, but it was the same. It was set up to be sort of similar to Deep Space Nine in that regard, where things that happen early on in Deep Space Nine get revisited later, and there's connective tissue, yes, but you can pop in and out of Deep Space Nine episode, and it's the same kind of thing here, where there is connective tissue. Things that happen in one episode do relate later on down the road to something else, but you don't necessarily have to have watched it. And I think that's, what was exciting for fans again. This is the type of Star Trek that I enjoy personally. I love to just, pop it on like popcorn, just like pick an episode and, oh, that one. And then, oh, I'll go back and watch something from season 1. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But I absolutely love this return and the optimism, because life is a heavy thing, like dealing with bills and taxes and jobs and everything else. So when I throw on Star Trek anyway, I don't want to have to really be heavy thinking or sad or blah, blah, blah. I want to be entertained. I like to be entertained, and I like the oddball things. And here's another return to here. We're going to show you some oddball things. We're going to show you some oddball planets. Some weird stuff's going to happen. Yeah, you'll be scratching your head here and there and thinking, but you never feel like the stakes are going to be so heavy where all of a sudden there might be a Tasha Yar moment and we will never see this person again. Because most of these characters do return in the original series. So, that kind of lowers the stakes there automatically.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, so we've talked about the hook and the promise and the structure, and I really think we get a great introduction of all of the characters that we're going to see. I mean, just little tidbits. I mean, because you can't have the whole thing revealed in one episode, but we get these little tidbits of threads that how each one is interconnected and how they know each other. So let's go through. What did we learn just from this episode about our characters?
I want to talk about Pike.
Go for it.
I got to talk about Pike. So listeners, let me know via Cinema Z if you get this reference. It's from a movie. But I was watching this episode, and this is what struck me. This line that doesn't actually exist, but I created. Enterprise was called the Ship of Dreams, and to everyone else it was. But to me, it was a slave ship, bringing me back out into space in chains. So, yes, listeners, that was a little call to the movie Titanic, when Rose was boarding the Titanic at the beginning of the movie. It's the same thing here with Pike. We have, our beautiful ship we're all excited to see, and he's, in the runabout, and this is a classic moment. You have this in Deep Space Nine. You have this in, Enterprise. It's like when you're first meeting the ship for the first time. Even in the movie there, the first
in all good things,
the motions picture, yeah, and in All Good Things, it's like you have that moment where the captain is visiting the ship via a runabout or what have you, and here's Pike, but he is chagrined. He is looking at the ship and like really kind of upset. He's annoyed that he's headed back out into space, and it's very similar vibes to me. I talked to you guys about this. Of going back to the cage, because here he is not wanting to go back out into space there, and here he's not wanting to go back to space here. He's really hesitant and bothered that he got dragged by Admiral April, who I might add was amazing in this episode. Just saying. But yeah, it was a really cool way to set up the show. We don't see that a lot. I think maybe Cisco would be the closest, because Cisco also did not really want to be there. He after the loss of his wife, so it had similar threads. There's a lot of similarities, I would say, oddly enough, to Deep Space Nine with this.
Yeah,
I'm fascinated that you brought that comparison between the Pike as the reluctant captain almost, because that's not what I think of when I think of Captain Pike. I think of integrity, honor, vulnerability, and humor, actually. If he was this quite sulky, sullen captain who, and it was all about the foreboding of the accident in every episode. I don't think I'd have loved him as much as I do, handsome specimen that he is.
But we are just talking about this one episode.
Yeah, so we get past it really quickly, which is great.
But it does feel cool. Speaking with what Amy was talking about, it's ties to Discovery. It's an acknowledgement, and it shows that this is not something that is easily for him to let go of. But through the course of the first few episodes, he's like, okay, and especially that season, by the end of the season, in that finale, which hopefully we get to at some point. Wow! We got to talk about that finale of season 1. But yes, he's definitely at that point ready to start a new journey with letting go of the past or the future in this regard.
With Pike, we also learned that he's in a relationship with Captain Battelle, who I'm still not wanting to have him be in a relationship with Captain Battelle. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I had forgotten that he has been with her, and that, that Rhapsody episode. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we still have Captain Battelle. Oh, I guess this is the relationship, but I still don't want to call it a relationship.
Can I ask a question? So the scene at the beginning, the breakfast scene with the beard.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand what Captain Battelle was saying. It was very mumbly, and it would have almost benefited from subtitles. And I don't know if that was just accent or a director's choice, but it didn't seem to have the pronunciation and enunciation as well of deliver your lines in a way that we can hear them.
She did it on her mouthful.
Yeah.
of cereal, ladies and gentlemen, of cereal.
Oh, Mark.
Maybe she was just today.
Maybe she was just so relaxed from having such a great night's sleep.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me out. I was like, who is this? At the time, obviously we know her very well now, but at the time I was like, who is this young girl? I was very surprised to find out she was a captain, first of all. I was like, who is she? Do I like her? Is she going to be important? And what is she bloody saying? Come on. It's like,
well, don't you think she's, to the screen. She's similar age to how old Shelby was, right?
I guess so.
TNG.
Well, I loved learning Spock's engagement to T'Pring. I'm such a huge T'Pring and Spock shipper. I know they don't end up together, but I want them to so bad. I just love T'Pring. So we learned that in this episode.
We also get, because again, Spock was in Discovery, and we kind of understand by this point what Ethan Peck is bringing to Spock. But strictly speaking, from what do we learn in this episode? We learn Spock is funny. And that continues throughout Strange New Worlds, even to now. But for Spock to be this almost comedy character, and that kind of coupled with T'Pring as well, because they are such a great double act. Some of the deadpan one-liners, even Captain, where are my pants? When they're in the alien disguises, just hilarious. And just going back to what we were saying about the hook and the promise and the tone of the show, I was thrilled when it was, oh my God, Strange New Worlds is going to be funny. It's so much fun. And I don't think that was set up or promised, and we didn't realize it until it was delivered. And it was delivered primarily through Spock in this episode. So it just gave me more of a reason to adore. And I don't know, I feel a little guilty for sometimes admitting this, but Ethan Peck is my favorite Spock. Yeah. Sometimes you feel like a bolt of lightning will hit you if you don't say Leonard Nimoy is your favorite. But Ethan Peck is brilliant.
And if you watch the original series, it was the same with Nimoy, though. Like, a lot of the humor was from either his eyebrow raising or like a dry, deadpan comment that was humorous to everybody else except him.
Mhm.
And they're bringing it back here, but like I feel like even more so they've amped it up a little bit more.
Mhm.
That's such a great point, because you're right, it is the same, but the difference with the original series for me personally is that I didn't really get the jokes, that they didn't land because it was old storytelling in the 60s. The humor was different, the delivery, the corny music that they played with it all the time, the McCoy Spock banter. You're right, it had the same intention, but the way it's delivered in modern Strange New World, I get it, and it lands, and it makes me either belly laugh or just smile with love. And that's what I want. It's Strange New Worlds has got that kind of comfort blanket feel to it that the other shows of the same time frame don't really have.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing that I learned and forgot was Nurse Chapel is Mbenga's favorite. Because when the person from the planet runs away and Mbenga's like, well, I'll work here and you go chase the rabbit. And she's like, you always give me the fun jobs because I'm your favorite. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I like their relationship that definitely gets explored more through the episodes. And I just thought that was fun. I'm like, oh, that's cute.
And that comes back in that season 2 episode where you find out that they were both on that planet together in a really bad spot. They were both on stimulants. And that was a lot less of a lighthearted episode, but it does explain their dynamic of why they are so close. And I love they revisited that.
So I was particularly excited of getting more backstory on the character of number 1, Una, Chin Riley, and maybe a little disappointed for this one episode, because she wasn't in it a huge amount because she was the prisoner, and they were going to rescue her. And I know obviously there will always be hostage and captive situations, but I don't like damsel in distress in modern storytelling. I think it's a little bit lazy. So to almost relegate number 1 to the female character that requires the male lead to come and rescue, I was like, oh, we could have really done something better there. And it's hard to separate. It's really hard to put your mind in the frame of what do I think of this one episode compared to everything else, because that is solved immediately after this episode. We get loads of fantastic stuff for number 1. But yeah, I had huge expectations for what we would get with Una, and she was just sat in a jail cell for this episode.
Yeah, I can see that, but we needed something to motivate Pike. Yeah. So that in and of itself tells us the relationship that he has with his number 1.
Well, we finally get to meet a little bit more, a live version of Kirk's brother. So Sam Kirk appeared in the original series, also played by William Shatner, but he just laid there dead and had a mustache. So we finally got some lines of dialogue here from Sam Kirk. And it is interesting that they got an actor that strikingly looks like not obviously original series Kirk, but the Kirk that would come on, the Jim Kirk they would get later on. And season 1, he made an appearance.
He did.
And then again in season 2 for a couple episodes. But they do look like they could be related. So I find that interesting.
I loved all the way through the episode, they kept dropping the name Kirk. They kept saying Lieutenant Kirk has arrived, but they didn't reveal it until the final scene that it was Sam Kirk. So you were almost led to believe it was James Kirk. And then there was the switch and, oh, it's that character. And because of everything else we know about Sam Kirk from what we've got until the end of season 2, I was very surprised because I'd forgotten the line of dialogue when he comes on the bridge and hugs Pike, and Pike says, "Hey Sam, how are the family?" So does that mean Sam's already got his kids at this point? So because Kirk has the relationship with his nephew after Sam dies, I headcanoned, completely forgot that line of dialogue and assumed something's going to happen in the next few seasons and he has kids, he meets someone. But this led me to believe that's already the case. Unless how's the family meant how's your brother? I don't know.
Oh, hadn't thought about that. One person that was new on the Enterprise that it didn't seem like Pike knew was Uhura, because she was a cadet and newly on board, but highly skilled. So we know that much about Uhura.
Yeah, I'm going to have difficulty here because myself and Kristin were mentioning offline in group chat, we enjoyed this rewatch so much that we just carried on. So I watched Children of the Comet straight after, which is obviously a very Uhura-centric. So I'm trying to put that out of my mind and limit my commentary to episode 1, Uhura. And for me, what I found fascinating was this concept of a cadet on rotation in the different departments. That's not a phrase I've heard before in terms of kind of whether that's something done in the military. And I know they've had like Nog, when he was in his sophomore year, he went to Deep Space Nine and things. But it made me recall when I was a trainee, when I did my environmental health degree, my 3rd out of 4th year was serving with the local authority in all of the different departments of environmental health. So food safety, housing, public health, environmental crime. And I was on rotation for that year. So I immediately warmed to the concept of Uhura still being a student, being a cadet, and on rotation. So I love that.
Yeah,
it made sense to me too, as far as like she does need to get training from each department to learn a little bit and then figure out her place. And so I thought that was cool. She's getting to experience different parts of the ship throughout this first season.
but is the Enterprise in this era, that's the flagship, right? So I don't know, that seems pretty risky to have cadets on the bridge of your flagship that's going, that's your number 1 ship. So pretty brave to do that.
Yeah, what better place is there to learn?
Yeah. Now we do get the story with La'an, that her family was killed by the Gorn and she was the only one to survive. That was probably like the heaviest of all reveals. And then of course we definitely see that more, but it was put out there and I was just like, I watched that and I'm like, man, that is so heavy and so sad. And like, this is our tortured character for the season, for the show.
That was the character that I think I aligned with the least through the first season. It just felt shoehorned. Like I'm like, why is she, Noonien Singh? Like, what's the point? Blah blah blah. Why is she gonna be so like aggressive? It just felt like, okay, like we're gonna make a female character just really butch, just to like, I don't know. To me, it just felt everything about her character felt very heavy-handed. Now I'm saying that first watch. By the time we get to season 2, and she's had some storylines at that point, and you've seen her interactions with the other characters, and they start fleshing out her backstory and stuff, then it all kind of makes sense, right? And so now, like, I really like her, and she's got some really fun moments, sprinkled in there, and so I definitely, she grew on me. But I would say, just talk about the first episode. Talking about all characters' first episode, I think I aligned with her the least. I actually like Chief Kyle more because he also was a callback to the original series. And so the original series, they had Chief Kyle in the transporter room, and here he's back. So I thought that was really cool.
Okay, so I'm not skipping over La'an yet because I have some opinions here too. La'an is my favorite character in Strange New Worlds, and she got so much more to do in season 2 with the whole vulnerability side and the the romance, if you like, with Kirk, and the comedy that they played around that as well. But going back to the first episode, I was very surprised how, and it's almost the opposite of Una, how much La'an had to do in this episode on the away mission, on the bridge, the concept of being the temporary number 1 in Una's absence. So winding back my perception to what did I think of La'an when I first saw her, not this character that I now love, I think I was fascinated because of Chrissy Chong's delivery of her. I didn't really know her as an actress. She just appeared in a music video for one of the Spice Girls back in the day. And I thought, I want to know more about this character. She is very strong. There's a lot going on. What's with this whole name? What's it going to mean of Noonien? Not Noonien Soong, Noonien Singh. Let's get that right. We all do that. But yeah, she became my favorite character.
Nice. Now, what did we learn about Ortega? She's the pilot.
She flies the ship.
It's a very, very loaded question, Amy.
Like,
do you know
really?
what?
I feel like we didn't learn anything. What's her connection? I'm sad.
So, joking aside, you could argue that we got all we needed. Well, you got all we were given for Ortegas in this episode, and it was not expanded on anymore for the rest of the 2 years. We still have not had the Erica Ortegas episode.
Right.
We were promised that there would be one in season 2. And I think they made us believe that Among the Lotus Eaters was going to be her episode, but it really wasn't. It was just, you're not coming on the away team. Oh, I'm not happy about that. That's it.
She was the lead of the B plot for that episode.
Yeah. And I think that's a shame. It's out there in all of social media and a lot of different commentary that she's been done dirty, but I can't help but feel maybe some things were pared back a little bit because she just lost her husband at the time in real life. So maybe there were some rewrites because she did struggle in a lot of the filming with her grief. So maybe there were some character changes to afford her the ability to continue working while she wasn't in the best of health, let's face it. But yeah, we still forget about episode 1. We still don't know a huge amount about Ortegas. And even if you think of those old scientists, when Boimler walks on the bridge and he goes, "Oh, you're a war hero," we still don't know what that's about. Is it the Klingon War? Is it something yet to come? Is it going to, because this is a character we've never seen before, you never hear of her again. What's going to happen? So it's more that fascination of the people we don't know through the original series, like La'an, like Ortegas. That's the really exciting thing about Strange New Worlds, because do they make it? Are these are the characters with peril? They could go on an away mission and die. So yeah, there's a lot to get excited about.
And well, Una too, because that is it. Like after Strange New Worlds, we in Star Trek canon, we don't know what's her future does actually hold. So
yeah, she ends on a poster.
She ends up on a poster.
All right. Well, how was this episode received? I think we talked a little bit up front where, this was a fan creation. So it was very well received. I really don't know of any other series that has started with so much love.
No, and
Isn't
it was
it?
refreshing to see because we've had so much hate for, okay, this isn't Star Trek with like Picard. This isn't Star Trek with Discovery. Like, we kept hearing that, but then Strange New Worlds came up and like, finally they made Star Trek. And admittedly, I was one of those people, but I do like the other shows. I'm on this podcast for a reason. I enjoy the other shows, but there was a big part of me that was like, yes, oh, thank God, they finally made Star Trek again.
It's really interesting that we've just been talking about the very end of Discovery and we're talking about the start of Strange New Worlds. It's quite poetic. And I've sometimes wrestled with this a little bit about am I almost like a secret Discovery hater? Like, I don't want to tell people I don't like it in case I get called a new Trek hater or something. And I have to say to myself, you're allowed to have a favorite and a least favorite. And it just so happens that Strange New Worlds is my favorite of all of the new Star Trek that we've got in this second golden age, and rightly so. And Discovery I still watch it, enjoy it, and have a love affair with it, but it doesn't rank as high as Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks and maybe even Prodigy. So it's allowed to be my least favorite, but still love it. I just find that interesting. So, yeah, does anybody know? Do you remember anyone having bad things to say about Strange New Worlds? I
No.
can't recall anything.
Yeah.
All I saw, again, I brought this up, all I saw online were comments from people that had been hating on the other shows coming out to say finally they made Star Trek again. So the people that, refer to it as like JJ Trek or what have you, this is part of that. This is the same DNA. These are the same people that brought you Discovery and stuff. But yes, this is definitely has a lot more in common with the Trek that came before.
What we also didn't have were people coming for Celia Rose Gooding and Ethan Peck saying, that's not Spock and Uhura, it discredits Nichelle Nichols. Everybody loved them and what they brought to those characters.
Until we got to Kirk.
Poor Paul Wesley.
Oh, no, poor us.
Hey, award-winning Paul Wesley.
For this?
Yeah, he won, was it a Saturn Award for the best guest character on a show?
Christ.
And it was his portrayal of Kirk. And I thought that was really ironic that he got a lot of hate for the way he portrays Kirk, and he was the only actor in the series who won the award. So interesting.
Well, let's move on to some assimilations and regenerations for this episode. One thing I really liked when they were talking to the planet's leaders and like, listen, you got to figure your shit out because we've seen this before. And so it sort of brought together all these wars that we had heard of separately in different series, like, oh, there was a second Civil War. Oh, the eugenics war. Oh, we've heard of this World War III that connected. And now we're saying that they were just sort of leading up to, and they're sort of all together. They're not individual events. And I like that continuity of bringing in those wars that we had heard of in previous series.
Yeah, and I didn't get that at the time. When I saw Pike delivering that speech with the visuals, I still saw them all as separate events. You know what I'm like with canon and connect it. The eugenics wars were in the 90s. World War III is 10 years before First Contact. It's 2050. That's when it happens. And then when you get tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow saying time has changed and eugenics wars is just another name for World War III. And then going back and rewatching this episode and Pike's delivery, it's like, brilliant. I've made peace with it. I love it. And I even love, sorry if this is a little sensitive to say to an American audience, that this actually all stems from an American Civil War. Ooh, it's quite triggering, isn't it?
Which could have started with January 6th insurrection.
It could start with Trump winning the White House again from his jail cell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
very
scary.
Believable. I mean, it is very scary. Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
all right, what else are we going to assimilate?
I want to assimilate the opening because we didn't know. We were all wondering before the lead up to the show, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And they did it. Was these are the voyages of the starship. And reading those lines at the start, because this would have been because actually they don't do it with Enterprise. They do so. This is a return to that classic style. We have the Enterprise, it's the flagship, it's the hero ship, and here we are doing like the original opening. So they got to do that, plus the music that was very reminiscent of the original series music, but like a play on it. So you can believe that it has similar DNA, and it already sets you up for what you're about to watch, where, okay, this might not be the original series, but this is connective tissue with it, right up with the music, right up with the opening, these are the voyages of Starship Enterprise, that whole thing. So I love the whole opening. I still watch it. I don't skip it. I watch it. I love the do, and they're showing the planets and it's flying around. I'm like, yay, I get all excited.
I never skip the intro for Strange New Worlds. I fully agree, Mark. It's beautiful. I'd like to assimilate the kind of the stepping stone from season 2 Discovery. I know we've mentioned that a lot already, but I think it was just enough that they mentioned Burnham in passing in one scene, and then the talk of the battle with the Kelpians, with the Klingons, with Control lighting up the sky, and the planet locally saw that happen. I thought that was interesting in itself. But there's no more else of Discovery. Even when we're in season 2 and Amanda Grayson comes to visit in Charades, there's no little scene on the side saying, "Oh, I miss Michael." It's she's gone. But this was just enough to make it relevant and understand where you are in the continuity of this is very, very shortly after the events of season 2.
Yeah, it did put a nice pin in the timeline of where are we. Yeah.
Well, I think I brought this up earlier, but the guy they got to play Admiral April, yes, in the cartoon, technically they painted him as a white character. Who cares? Who cares? This actor they got was he brought some gravitas to it, a little bit of swagger. He was believable as, the predecessor to Pike. That you could believe that he originally held the position of captain of that Enterprise. And I love that we get to keep seeing him back. It was like, with TNG, there were, a rotating roster of admirals, yes, but we did see familiar faces, here and there would pop in and out throughout the course of the series. And here we have April doing that part for Strange New Worlds. And
this is almost like the Admiral Forrest on Enterprise, isn't it? It's the regular Admiral that we know. Yeah.
And I liked that small tie-in that he had to get clearance as to what happened with Discovery. It's like he had to be read in. And so you're like, okay, yep, there's still the wall of we're not going to talk about where Discovery went.
Hey, I guess maybe the April recast might have been that piece of negativity that we were just searching for earlier, because there was some hate online that they'd recast a black guy to play April, and everyone's like, he's a white man. It's like, well, no, he's not. So it's a diversity recast, and all for the better. But you could argue this is what happened with Chief Kyle as well. He was a white guy in the original series, and now he's Asian. If it's meant to be the same person, which I'm guessing it is. But that is just the right and proper thing to do to introduce more people so that they can see themselves in these characters. And I love that.
I think the guy that voiced April for the cartoon came forward as saying that he thought it was a fantastic choice of actor to play him. It was either the actor that voiced him or it was one of the cartoonists or somebody that drew him. Somebody like that.
I thought it was James Doohan who did the voice for April in that episode of the original animated series.
Maybe it was one of the artists that created him or something for the cartoon. But I thought that was nice.
Cool.
All right. So for regenerations, this one just was glaring at me. And all the theories do it except one. And I give kudos to Enterprise. But let's talk about the captain's quarters. Humongous, huge island, all this space, a bay of couches lining the room underneath the windows. This room is so humongous. I'm like, this does not make sense. This doesn't fit in to what I believe Star Trek is when you're talking about equality. Like, I get that the captain's quarters are beautiful, but it's not fair. You're giving favoritism based off of rank. Like, that's not cool. Think about Enterprise. Captain Archer's quarters were small. That's how it should be. I mean, probably a little bit larger than the other crews, but it doesn't logically make sense. He doesn't need that much space. And it's not fair and equitable. And we're giving
Amy. And so in my head, like you think about Janeway Voyager. Like when Voyager launched, she had her own whole dining room with a kitchen, a galley kitchen, and all that stuff.
You're right.
So in my mind, they have Pike having this large space because the intention is that as captain, he's going to be hosting all of these ambassadors, all of these dignitaries from foreign planets, and he has the space to do so within his quarters, inviting
in his bedroom.
In. Why not?
No, that's why you have a conference room. The bedroom where the captain sleeps is not, in my opinion, we don't need this classism within Star Trek.
I famously at work used to always invite my team to my old apartment when we used to have our works Christmas party. So it was almost like a pre-party. It was come to my house, have some drinks. It wasn't the house you know, Amy, that I live now. It was my old apartment because it had this great roof terrace and a bar. But I would love to invite my team to my home to celebrate them. So I don't see that as being inappropriate or a problem. Okay. Maybe I'm a little bit more fickle because I didn't look at it as in this class system. I just love the beauty of that set. Oh my God, when can I move in? I love it.
A fireplace? I mean, come on now.
I didn't quite agree with the health and safety of having an open fire in there. That got me. That took me into the real world. But the aesthetic, the finish, it was almost like, when you go into IKEA and you see all the rooms made up and you're like, can I just take this entire room and transplant it to my house? That's what I want with a lot of Strange New Worlds aesthetic on the quarters.
Talk about ship porn. Oh my God.
All right. What other regenerations?
I don't like that we lost Lieutenant Amin, who we were introduced to at the end of Discovery. She was the original navigator and was in a lot of the story when it was on the Enterprise. So you had number one sat at the helm like she did in the Cage, and then who becomes Mitchell, I guess, in Strange New Worlds, sat next to Ortegas, was originally another gold uniform lady, Lieutenant Amin. And she was also in Short Treks. She was the character that rescued number one and Spock from the turbo lift when they were stuck in the...
Right. Yeah.
So, and she used to post a lot on Twitter and, she was really happy about it. So I was really sad that for whatever reason, still unknown, she didn't make it into Strange New Worlds.
I think it's a little bit of a continuity sort of, we know we've established already that Pike is from the desert. Isn't he from New Mexico or something?
Mojave.
Mojave, yeah.
Mojave.
And so why, when we're first introduced to him, I get probably they save money for shooting in Canada in the winter, but like, I don't know. I was like just dumbfounded because all the promo posters showed him riding his horse across the frontier, across the desert, like with the sun setting, you know, over Mojave. And we never got to see it. We didn't see it season 1. We didn't see it season 2. There's been no desert. And supposedly this is where he's from. When he fantasized with what's her bucket in the cave on Talos, with Vina, it's like his fantasy was being back in Mojave, like in the desert with his horses and Surinase a lot. But you know, we don't see any of that. So if I was to regenerate anything about this episode, it's like, come on, you could have used even the big wall or something and created a desert, done whatever you needed to do. But Pike, he's from the desert. That's where his house is. I don't know what this Montana crap is about.
Maybe, to me, I mean, I also regenerated the beard, you know, looking scruffy. Get rid, disgusting, not good. But to me, that it was quite symbolic. This is a personification or representation of his state of mind. So, you know, he's in the winter of his turmoil, and it's the conditions and the environment that he's in the log cabin in the winter is supposed to be unhappy, cold, removed from what. So I think if he was in a homely, familiar desert area, you wouldn't have had the drama that you got from where we start with him now.
I love that. He was in the winter of his struggle. Yeah, like that. Any other regenerations?
Chapel, genome, tinkering with DNA. You know, where's the line in Star Trek that you're now illegal, you're now Una and Dr. Bashir because you're genetically modified, versus Chapel's injected you with something that's changed your DNA to have surface level, skin deep alterations? Why is that allowed? And then something medical, you know, let's go to Picard to save fads. Oh, actually, no, that was the positronic ban, wasn't it? But if there was a medical intervention that required genetic modification, you're not allowed to do that because it's illegal. It's a blurred line, and I feel that was Star Trek trying to update the science on the covert away teams rather than saying this is prosthetics, which we were led to believe in the past. I think prosthetics would have been fine. I don't think we needed the whole genome thing.
I agree with you. And I, you know, saw that you put that comment in. I'm like, that is a great comment. But then as you're asking the question, I'm wondering if the line is temporary versus permanent.
Permanent, maybe.
All right. Well, few trivia. Now, this episode, Strange New World, this is the 5th time a title was used from the opening narration, right, that you talked about, Mark, in the original series. Can you name the other 4 titles? All right, Kelvin, you want to go for it?
Well, there's the trick answer, because we've got Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Correct, from the original series.
And then we've got Where No One Has Gone Before from Next Generation.
The Next Generation.
We've got These Are the Voyages from Enterprise.
One more.
Strange New Worlds. Oh, that's this.
That's this one. Yep, good job. Now there's one more.
Have we had To Boldly Go?
No.
To Go Boldly? No. Ooh, Amy, you've got me.
Mark, any guesses?
Record the time and date. I don't know the answer.
Well, I'll give you a hint. It's not an episode.
Oh, it's a movie.
Yes. The least favorite.
The Final Frontier.
There you go. Star Trek
Well done. I
5.
love that. I love that.
Yay for trivia. All right, what else?
So this is just trivia I just pulled from my memory from reading trivia a while back. I don't know. I can't source it somewhere, but I do remember this being a little bit of trivia. The TV in the corner of Pike's log cabin is a nod to the TV in the corner of Pike's quarters in the original series Enterprise during the Cage. He did have he had a bar cart there and a little like 50s television for some reason. I don't know. Anyway.
Very nice.
I don't know if it's trivia or whether it's just something I should have maybe put in assimilations, but I did like that they referred to communicators as the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
When she kept saying the phone's ringing.
Yep. They'll call back. Don't worry about it. I wish they wouldn't call back. All right. Well, guys, let's get to our final thoughts. I've done some major research. We've had a hot mess with these numbering systems of taking it from the top. And we have 2 more series to cover in this series. And that's going to be Prodigies, Lost and Found. And we have just skipped right over the animated series Beyond the Farthest Star. So we need to get going on those. So we have 2 more episodes. And then this series will be slotted to close. Very excited. So previously covered, I want to know who did it better. The Cage, where no man has gone before, and we covered both of those. Encounter at Farpoint, Emissary, Caretaker, Broken Bow, Vulcan Hello, Battle of the Binary Stars, which we covered together, Second Contact, which we actually covered twice, and Picard's Remembrance. So final thoughts, how did this episode do to launch a new series, and who did it better? Kelvin, let's start with you.
Well, first of all, there's nothing worse than a Messi taking it from the top. Should have douched. Right. I'm going to go for it and say this is the best.
Ooh!
I know, controversial. There was so many strong pilots. Emissary is a great pilot episode. I watch it so much. But this, even by the end of episode 1, I felt I knew everyone. I know the direction of the show. I'm desperate for more. It's everything we waited for. I think it's the strongest pilot.
All righty, Mark.
Oh, well, I can't really argue with that. There's some close calls. I think that at the time, I'm putting myself like as a teenager when I watched Voyager for the first time, The Caretaker. I was like, oh wow, they're stuck over there in another quadrant. This is going to be an interesting show. And so for me, there was that hook there that was exciting. Enterprise, when you see the Klingon running through the cornfield, and you're like, oh, what is happening here? And it sets up this whole like, okay, they're going to go exploring in space for the first time, and the ships are different and whatever. That had a really good hook as well. But as far as like gauging the excitement, probably this one, as far as, we have this first episode, and how excited are you for the next and the next and the next? I was just ready and hungry, and give me all the episodes.
Yeah. What about you, Amy?
Definitely it can't be Discovery, because we didn't even meet the whole crew. Again, Picard, it didn't give us what it was going to be, I feel. I agree with you, Mark, that Broken Bow and Caretaker, those hooks were really strong, and you were just so curious. I, of course, love Encounter at Farpoint, and feel like they set that premiere set up everything. It had a good story. It gave us the cue, like, And then, of course, it's my favorite. So that one's up there. But I would like to comment on Lower Decks because I feel that was a very, very good first premiere episode. We got to know the characters. It's this California ship. We understand what their job is in relation to Starfleet. But the humor for me wasn't good for me personally, because I'm not a funny person. So like it's off with that. But I feel like as a premiere, Lower Decks did it right. But what I enjoy is this Strange New World.
Ooh, it's weird. You feel almost guilty, don't you, for not discrediting everything that came before because we love it so much. But it's like what I said earlier, we are allowed to have a favorite.
Yes, we are. What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin and a guest as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea Bev. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Kelvin, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Well, next week we are over to the Delta Quadrant to help the Doctor fill in a few gaps of those missing memory files to solve the mystery of the mysterious Ensign Jetal. We're going to be discussing Voyager's latent image from Season 5 in our medical ethics series.
Well, we would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or on our Discord server to continue our discussion there. You can also reach us at All Good Pod on X, Bluesky. You can follow the network also on X, Bluesky, and Instagram at BQN Podcast. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. Links can be found in the show notes. So, Kelvin, where can people find you when you aren't hosting everyone at your magnificent bedroom quarters?
Don't tell everyone I do that. When I'm not doing that, you can find me in the BQN Collective on Facebook. You can find me over on our Discord server, or you can find me directly on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline. And Mark, where can people find you when you're not being moody in the snow with a massive beard called Captain Battelle?
Oh my lord. I live in New England, so that's me every winter. When I'm not doing that, you can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group. It's pretty awesome. You guys should join if you haven't already. Also, you can find me on Cinema Z, a podcast I host with my friend Matt Jennings, where we discuss all the films that you probably missed but should definitely check out. And Amy, where can people find you when you are not being all of our favorite nurse and chasing around an alien across the Enterprise?
All right. Well, at least I'm not your favorite beard. Well, you can find me here on the network, where I am co-hosting Union Federation, and I am in our Facebook group, BQN Collective. But my favorite place is our Discord server. Guys, join that. There is a new updated link in the show notes. Click it. Join me, Amy Nelson 522.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you too can become a patron of this fine network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join Let's Fly reaction shows, script readings, and enjoy our special Patreon-only shows, It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details, and you watch those messages.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support our show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or maybe hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you leave us a star rating and a written review, because that helps others find the show.
Now, at this time, we have some very special people to thank, and they are our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Jenediah Seastrum. Very special thanks goes to Graham Kelly for our music, and of course, our one and only Mark White for our artwork every week. Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
Bum, 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 bum. All good things.
Now, what's the fourth? Oh, wait. Oh, okay, yes. And then we also had short treks.
No.
Did we?
Yes, in 2022.
Yeah, we had the Captain Pike one, didn't we? Oh, did we? I'm getting very confused here, Amy.
I don't think so.
We might need to do some fact checking here.
Wasn't that the season 2 ones, Q&A and...
No, I think they came straight after season 2 of Discovery, when Pike and Spock first went back to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Because they were in the Disco Prize uniforms.
Okay,
Yeah.
then Memory Alpha is wrong. But Prodigy, Discovery, and Picard, but they had short treks on there as well. So might have to edit
They were
that.
streamable, not just not broadcasted.
Yeah.